He's waited patiently. We did 2 weeks of the show without him. It was pretty tough. But
How did
now
we get
he
by?
is back. The sexy beast, the great mind that is John Rothman, everybody. Welcome him back. You were south of the border. Is that what you said? You're at a wedding in Mexico?
I was in Mexico City for a wedding. It was absolutely spectacular and had a lovely time, and I'm glad to be home.
Mexico City is supposed to be, and I've never been, obviously, that's why I say it's supposed to be, just a remarkable world-class city, and restaurants that are extraordinary, culture that's extraordinary. Did you find that all?
Yes, absolutely. I will tell you that the poverty that exists side by side with the opulence is very disturbing.
How long before we have that completely done in this country, John? I feel like we're headed that way.
If you believe that, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you. It's made out of gold. I can see it from my bedroom window.
We have, though, you will concede, the richest riches alongside what is now a growing, I'm going to call it underclass, with the elimination in the middle of that middle class life that could put a roof over your head comfortably and where you could put your kids through, various colleges, or you know what I'm saying, John. You don't buy that this country is really sliding a little bit that way.
I think there's no question that the cost of housing is impossible. Take a look at the prices of houses in San Francisco. That's all you have to do to understand the problem, or go to the suburbs, or go to places where you thought housing was cheaper, and it really isn't. And it's a real conundrum because of the American system. So this is one of the things that we will have to witness and watch, and which I think will be an issue in the next presidential campaign as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think as people struggle to make ends meet, they feel as though their piece of the pie is getting slimmer and slimmer.
Well,
I
the American dream was to be able to buy a home. And I can tell you, I have many friends and my children's friends, even renting an apartment is a complex thing. The average apartment in San Francisco now is going for about $4,000 a month. So it's a real issue for people. And the housing prices are phenomenally high, but that's a whole other issue to debate.
Well, I mean, I think that also that post-war world where you had a thriving middle class and you had a thriving industrial class with, as you say, the American dream essentially accessible to all. Those days are gone. You've had union busting going on, as you know, in those many decades, and I think you see it now. I thought labor was having a moment in this country over the last few years, but now you see some major labor hurdles to clear. The Oakland teachers are on strike. The writers in Hollywood are on strike. You've seen union busting across the Starbucks chain, even in Amazon. So I'd love to have this conversation with you maybe for next time, because I know we've got Santos and Trump to talk about. But I think there's a lot here. This is a real moment in American economic history going on. I want to ask you about this Trump case. I know there's a ding dong, the witch is dead kind of quality to the celebration, But I was saying before that if you listen to the GOP, and I was reading some quotes, everyone from Marco Rubio to Ted Cruz, they all dismiss it. It's a New York jury. It's a civil case, whatever. They essentially push it to the back burner as they know that Trump right now is leading in polls and he's their guy. Can you unpack it for us?
Last night, I was with Kim McAllister for a very brief broadcast on this whole question. And I want to be crystal clear. I have predicted, and those of you who listen to me on KGO and then again here on the Mark Thompson podcast know that I've been very clear that ultimately the wheels of justice would grind Donald Trump. And that's exactly what's happening. I believe it is not a celebration for me of Donald Trump's guilt. Rather, it is a vindication of the American justice system. No one is above the law. Donald Trump faces not only what happened yesterday with E. Jean Carroll, but he faces the charges from New York. He will face charges on the insurrection. He will face charges on Georgia. And people ask, well, will he ever pay any money? And the answer is that's not the point. If he never pays a nickel, history will judge him harshly. I am very sad to report that two leading Republicans, Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio, as you indicated earlier, have dismissed this situation, saying, "Oh, the jury was packed and you can't get a fair trial in New York." How tragic, because both of those individuals are lawyers and they know better. And the truth of the matter is, Donald Trump was nailed now for something that he should have been nailed for years ago. Tonight at 5 o'clock West Coast time, I will, like I hope all Americans, will be watching CNN for the town hall with Donald Trump. It should be high drama, and I'm sure that it'll be put right to him, and we'll see how he responds.
Well, it's only high drama if the journalist who's conducting the town hall holds his feet to the fire, and Donald Trump serves up BS like a short order chef, and you have to check him in real time, John. It's very, very hard to do.
Caitlin Collins, I have a high regard for her. I'm anxious to see how she performs. I watched Dana Bash going up against one of Trump's attorneys yesterday and really being shut down. But I hope that Caitlin Collins is tougher, and I hope that the voters of New Hampshire, and I've spent a lot of time in New Hampshire, I hope the voters of New Hampshire who are part of that town hall are equally insistent. What is tragic in my mind is the Republican Party's total lack of response, except for Asa Hutchinson, who made a very strong comment about Trump. But is he going to...
Well, Asa Hutchinson made a strong comment because Asa Hutchinson is running for president.
That's right. But let me remind you, the other candidates for the Republican nomination have been very mild. They were restrained. Asa Hutchinson was not. Now, maybe he's trying to stake out a particular group. Let me also indicate to you, I don't know if you saw Liz Cheney's commercial, which is now being run, which blasts Trump, which was made in advance of this decision. Thank God there is some courage in the Republican Party to stand up to the cult of Donald Trump.
I mean, it's so sad that we have to run to Liz Cheney for this, but you're right. I mean, the others who you mentioned, Rubio and Graham, they have let down the process. I mean, there is that, I was saying, the adage, Democrats fall in line, Republicans fall, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. There is equality with Graham and Rubio and the rest, and the others who are all on record as saying, hey, it's a New York jury, of falling in line, that they support their guy. Democrats don't have that kind of loyalty. Yeah.
They should all know better, and the American people should most assuredly understand how important it is when the criminal justice system works, and it clearly does. Donald Trump says he's going to appeal. Good luck.
You said something, and I don't mean to, this is something that I think is a frustration with a lot of our listeners and viewers, and I have it immensely, and that is the slowness with which these wheels of justice, as you describe, the gears of justice that grind. This is an extraordinarily, excruciatingly slow process to get him on the things that really matter, essentially trying to overturn an election.
They'll get him. They'll get him. And I want to remind you, in Watergate, which took place in June of 1972, it took until August of 1974 for a result. It is important that we preserve the process of judicial fairness in this country. And I have to tell you, I know it takes a while. Justice is not necessarily quick. It's not Perry Mason style within a 60-minute period. But you can see the wheels turning, and you can see Donald Trump and the situation. I have to tell you, I agree with some Republican observers who said he may win the nomination, but he hasn't a chance to snowball in hell of winning the election. And I believe that to be true. Why? Because of swing voters in this country. But the tragedy here is the Republican Party. And the Republican Party ought to have the wherewithal. And I'm not a Trump supporter, as you all know. The Republican Party should have the wherewithal to stand up and say, we embrace much of what Donald Trump did as president, but we reject him as a personality. That, to me, would be the ultimate vindication of this situation.
What kinds of things might they say that they had endorsed during his administration?
You name whatever Donald Trump wants to talk about: tax cuts, the Middle East, the border. You can name it. I don't agree with him on any of those things.
Right.
But it's a platform which the Republican Party embraced and
Sure.
continues to embrace. And the question now for the Republican Party is, will they continue to embrace this man who has violated every norm in American politics? You know what's stunning to me, Mark, as a political historian? There is not another politician in the United States who could have survived with the popularity, these slings and arrows that have come Donald Trump's way, all of his own being, all of his own cause. And so this is going to be a real challenge. When Donald Trump is gone from the scene, how will the Republican Party rebuild itself? And I believe in a two-party system in this country. I believe it's very important. There is no third party that is going to take the place of the Republican Party, and therefore the Republican Party has an obligation to get its house in order.
So well said. Although I would say that there already is, John, the wing of the party that has seized control independent of Trump. I mean, it's Trumpian, some of the things that they say and some of the postures that they take, and this whole idea of doubling down on your indecency, or what you might consider indecent. That's become a thing, you know. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Josh Hawley. These are all, and it was already, you already had the Gomerts of the world, and, you know, they're all out there, it's sort of moving the meter, not as hot. These are the new hot personalities, the Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, et cetera. So I feel as though after Trump, it'll be that, I think. And they, to you know, the extent that they've seized the agenda, they've been successful. I mean, they seized the agenda from Kevin McCarthy, don't you think, John? When it comes to this budget, the stipulations that are in this, quote, budget that they passed, they represent a lot of those people who I just mentioned and their positions.
Unfortunately, you're right. But let me say, Kevin McCarthy, and I listened very carefully to his comments after his meeting with the president, Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans are doing great damage to the United States of America. And hopefully, all you can do is hope. Hopefully, the American people and the Republican Party will stand up and say enough is enough. I think that must happen. I don't say it will happen, but it must happen. And look, you mentioned George Santos and his criminal indictments, which have now come down. There is justice. It just takes time. And people do wake up. And when you have the Republicans on Long Island telling him, be gone, enough of you, then you can only hope that in the end, I know what's going to happen. Santos will lose his seat in Congress one way or the other, and the Republican Party will try to reclaim. But the point really, Mark, is I don't wish ill on the Republican Party. I want them to be a vibrant political party. I want them to offer a choice for the American people. And given the platform they have adopted, and remember, they had no platform in 2020. Their platform was whatever Donald Trump wants. The minute a political party makes a statement like that as a formal statement of their position, one man, that is something that is unacceptable in the American political system, in my judgment.
Well, John Rothman is right. I mean, it's a cult on the GOP side. It's a cult of Trump, and that's why the Trump cultists reject the jury verdict and will always back Trump no matter what. He literally could do, I think, anything. I mean, they've looked the other way on sexual assault. They've looked the way on any number of things, on fraud of all sorts. I mean, this is a guy who essentially spends his life defrauding in one way or another. But on the Santos thing, because you mention it, Santos is a critical vote for passing that budget. Santos is a critical vote to McCarthy in getting him the speakership. You'll notice McCarthy is kind of playing it down the middle, you know. Hey, well, we took him off the committees. Of course, he was already off the committees. He had removed himself from the committees because of a conversation he'd had with McCarthy back in January. You know what I mean, John? It's an interesting fact about this Santos guy. McCarthy needs that vote, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's shameful. Once upon a time, the Republican Party had leaders in the House of Representatives like Joe Martin and Charlie Halleck and Jerry Ford and Bob Michael, who were exemplary leaders. They were people who really worked the system. Some of them I knew quite well. That is not the Republican Party. May I make another comment? Today, Congressman Comer, who is the leading the investigation against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, was supposed to drop all his bombshells. So far, it's the same old stuff, and it upsets me. You know what's amazing to me? While we were away, Tucker Carlson lost his job. Thank God, although he's trying to come back now. But let me be clear about this. I watch Fox because I have low blood pressure and I've got to keep myself going. I listen carefully to how Fox reflects on these current crises, and it is pathetic. It's not news. I won't call it Fox News. That's an oxymoron. But it is something we have to understand, that half of America watches Fox. So it's a curious disconnect from the truth.
Well, because you've mentioned news and because you've mentioned Fox, I want to ask you a question that no one else is bringing up. That's what I do here, John. I talk about stuff that nobody else is talking about. I'll get to Santos and Trump and all that other stuff. Everybody's talking about it. But I also talk about stuff that nobody's talking about. And so, because you mentioned news, I wanted to touch on the fact that there is a White House policy that's coming down. And there was a flavor of this with the Trump administration. And now you're seeing it in the Biden administration. New White House rules concerning reporters and journalists in the White House press room. You know what I'm talking about. They proposed new rules to determine who qualifies for access to the press room and who will get those briefings on a regular basis. This is their attempt to establish a code of conduct and to avoid the legal jeopardy that the Trump administration found themselves in. You'll remember when they got rid of Costa and Brian Karem. That was in 2018. They got rid of these guys, and that was contested in court because there was no due process. You'll recall all of that. So now the White House is saying, hey, there are going to be new codes of conduct for all of you in the press room if you want to sit in on these briefings. Your thoughts?
Shameful. Shameful. I believe that when you are a public official, you have to enter the arena to take any question. And if someone, and we have people from Fox who go to these press conferences and try to be disruptive, then the press secretary shouldn't be polite. I know why you're here, the press secretary should say, and you may ask your question, I will answer it, and then we're going to move on. I think you have to confront this kind of disruption, whether it comes from a Democrat or a Republican, no matter who is in the White House. I am reminded of press conferences. You may remember when Richard Nixon was confronted by members of the press, including Dan Rather and others, and really lambasted, and he gave it right back to them. But you know something? That is the give and take you want. It's interesting to me, Mark, the one thing that Fox does, they broadcast the White House press briefings. And that to me is intriguing. Although, may I tell you, I believe that a president of the United States should have the courage to meet the press. Franklin Roosevelt had 999 press conferences or some such number, almost 1,000 during his presidency. He summoned the reporters into the Oval Office, and you know what he did if somebody asked an out-of-line question? He said, put on the dunce cap and go to the corner. There was a sense of humor, there was a sense of correctness, and that is what we are missing. May I also make the comment about Joe Biden, because he is more and more in the news in terms of his ability to function. I have no doubt about his ability to function. He's doing it, but maybe with the help of staff, as Dianne Feinstein does, with the help of staff. But the simple fact is the American people are going to have to make a judgment in November of 2024. And you and I will be watching and observing and talking about it then, I'm sure. And that is, do we want a president who is 80 years old and who clearly does not have the vigor that Joe Biden had when I knew him in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s? And it's a serious question. It doesn't mean he's not a good president. It doesn't mean his policies have not been effective. The other thing I've noticed, and it is very...
Well, isn't that what it's about, though, John? I didn't mean to interrupt, but isn't that what it's about when you say, do we want... I'm hiring a babysitter for my kids who has to run around and, get them off the swing set. I'm hiring a president whose policies are important. So even if the guy's a step or a step or even two slower. In a sense, it's about policy, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. But we also look to a president, as Theodore Roosevelt described it, as a bully pulpit. That is to say, being able to articulate and demonstrate the effectiveness of leadership. And I think that is something that the Democrats have to take into account as well. So do the Republicans, by the way. I am deeply concerned when I see someone like Governor DeSantis emerging as the evident successor to Donald Trump. DeSantis is just as bad, if not worse. Just take a look at his policies in Florida. So there are real issues in this country that have to be confronted. And one of the things that I hope will happen as this presidential race heats up is those issues will be confronted, and that you and I and others will take them on directly and comment on them and talk about them. We have
Well, I mean, sadly, for the most part, in these presidential elections, what masquerades as issues that we talk about is embarrassing. I mean, you know, it's the emails from Hillary. It's
so we have to try to rein them in. We have
All right.
to try in what we do in our own way. I'm smart enough to know that you can't solve all the problems, but what you can do is act responsibly yourself in whatever situation you may find yourself. And that's what I've tried to do on the radio, and that's what you tried to do on the radio, and that's what we're going to continue to do, I'm sure.
All right. So next week we'll talk the town hall thing, which you have great hopes for, and I have lesser hopes. You're an optimist, and I'm a realist.
Not that I have hope. I am going to watch it and hope that it works, but I can assure you from the point of view of entertainment, and for Caitlin Collins, who is the MC, this is going to be a critical point in her career.
Oh, it is. But I think that I'm sorry. The U.S. I mean, yeah, it's like watching a great high school team play the Warriors. It's you know, I'm sorry, Donald Trump. When it comes to BS and owning a conversation, there is no better. I mean, he serves up fraudulent facts so quickly that it's almost impossible in real time to check him. But as you say, it will be an event. So I will watch with you, but we will discuss more to the point next week. I adore you.
Who knows what else will happen by next week?
Yes, it's true. I wish I had my Kamala Harris finger puppet with me. I do not, but I'm sure wherever she is, she wishes you well. Thank you, John Rothman.
Next week.
Bye-bye. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.